Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to UCY.TV for What Matters Worldwide. I'm Vince Easley, hosting, and we're live. Boom. There you go. So, I thought I'd start out with a couple of those stories. I don't need news, but this has been news all over the place. I'm not sure how many people have seen anything on this. I can't imagine that you haven't. But anyway, some law enforcement agencies have adopted policy to save some time and make sure they get their guy. They've just started firebombing entire neighborhoods where they think the guy that resides at, specifically one guy was terrorizing the city, so they pegged him down and took care of that guy. Another story that you may or may not know about is this guy. He shows up right on this farm. He tells the guy, look, my grandpa, he used to live here, and he says, I wonder, maybe I could just stay for a while. So, the guy lets him in there, and he stays, and so pretty soon he gets with his buddy, right, and he happens to have some connections, and so what they do is they come in and they take this guy's farm from him, right, but they let him live over on this little spot. Then the neighbors, they protest, right, and they say, hold on, man, we're not going for this. So what they did then was they firebombed some of these neighbors, and one of them, they kind of took some of his land and built a fence and pushed him back. So anyways, you may or may not figure that out. I'm sure most of you will. So Dave says, you're Roaring Bear. That's Dave. He's going to be coming up with Colby in the second hour. And they're going to be discussing an initiative in up there in Oregon on some voting. So they'll bring you and fill you in on that more later. I do have Mikey Indigo. He's going to be coming in with us right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the darker sides of religion, a continuation of our original talk a couple of weeks ago, kind of expounding on that. And where Chuck Ocelli on the Ocelli Effect last Saturday, along with Daniel Crumpton, author of Then Came the Flood, an excellent book. I really enjoyed it. One of the best I've ever read. Had a completely original storyline, and as far as I'm concerned, that I've not found anything I could quite compare it to. Although last week I think I did compare it slightly to the ending of Battlestar Galactica series, the new series, but that's not really completely accurate. But it kind of encompasses a little bit of the same ideas. Anyways, hey Mikey, welcome back to What Matters. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I think we're both a little off our game tonight, but we won't go into all the details. But so we're going to bat it back a little bit, you and I, and J. Cynthia Brooks is going to come in here. She wanted to come in, so I said, you betcha, we'll bring her in here probably in the next half hour. Welcome everybody in chat. Thanks for joining us, and welcome Mikey.
Thank you for having me on once again. I gotta say, forgive me everybody. Like you said, I'm a little off my game tonight, but I'm gonna do the best I can. And we got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and I hope I get through all of it, because there was so much we didn't cover 2 weeks ago that I would like to try and cover now, or things that we talked about that people may not understand. But I was wondering, Vince, if you could allow me to start off with an announcement, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. And I forgot that thing that you said that somebody wanted a little further explanation about.
The divine dreamer theory.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll get into that. But first, I want to let everybody know, I'll make the setup for this. A lot of people said they read the Arconicles, and the main character, Paul Morgan, who is 12 in the story, they wanted more information on him. So by popular demand, I decided, and I don't know when I'm going to release this, and I've been working on this, and it's going to be a short book, but I'm going to do a little buffer between the first and second book for the Arconicles, and it's all going to be about a story about Paul Morgan and how he came into being, and basically his history, because a lot of people had a lot of questions like, well, how did Paul get like this, and how did he become to have the abilities that he's had, and being a 12-year-old child, because a lot of people didn't understand how a 12-year-old could be so special like that. So, as promised, I will be writing a small book. I haven't come up with a name yet, but I'm thinking maybe the Paul Morgan dossier or the Paul Morgan file, something like that. That's not the title yet. It's just a working title. But it'll be a short book on the story of Paul Morgan and how he, basically how he came into being. Like, people wonder, like, who his father was and where he got the abilities from. Because, of course, his mother was introduced in the story, only in one part, but there'll be more information on his mother and also more information on who his father is. So it's going to be an interesting story. I won't get into it too much, but just keep a lookout sometime between now and the end of this year for that story about Paul Morgan. That's coming soon.
Cool. So Jax, he wants to know more about the firebombing and farmland grabbing. And now I kind of gave myself away. Walter said, you shouldn't be alluding to anything and hiding it. But, yeah, it was kind of my little punch at the policy on war.
Right. See, the things when you talk about firebombing, I had my guess, but I think I'm going to keep that to myself, and let's see if someone else can guess that. And if they can, if they get it, I'll let them know that that's the same thing I was thinking. But I'm going to allow someone to take the credit for that one and try and get a guess at that one. But I have an idea of what you were talking about.
Right on. So, I posted earlier, is government your God? Is your palate, no, I forgot what I said. Anyways, about your palate from the pulpit. I'm sorry, Mikey, go ahead.
No. It's kind of funny you mentioned that because when you talk about government and government being a god, the first thing that came to mind was Larkin Rose. I got introduced to his material about 2 years ago, and a lot of it's funny. Larkin, I don't know if he listens to your show. I am a fan of his work, but a lot when you read Larkin Rose's material, at least for me, it speaks more to your intuition than your intellect. At least this is the way I feel about it. But the way he explains things about how government really operates and what it represents, he breaks it down so simple that you can't deny that it all makes sense about how government is basically an idea that people think is supposed to be around. When, if you think about it, people say there would be chaos without government, but yet still chaos, and there's still government. Right. So that argument kind of gets defeated. But I've read The Most Dangerous Superstition. Actually, I purchased it about 2 years ago, and it's a great book. If you haven't read it, I suggest go out, get a copy of The Most Dangerous Superstition. It is a very good book. It'll explain.
Check it out, dude. Guess what I got in my hand right now?
The Most Dangerous Superstition.
I certainly do. And Saturday, which, oh man, now this speaks volumes. Now, all this time, I've been thinking it was Sunday, right? August 2nd. And the whole time it's been right in front of me, Saturday, August the 2nd. It just goes to show that when a person thinks that they know something and it can be right there in front of you, you don't see it, But Larkin Rose is going to be here Saturday. Let me go pull that link up and I'll tell you where it is. It's over by UNLV on Maryland Parkway, but I will get the exacts on that. I've been doing a lot of listening to Larkin's work, and I can't obviously type and speak at the same time.
I don't know if you're typing or punching something, but it's very loud on that.
Both. Okay, here we go. It's coming up. So Larkin Rose is coming to Vegas, and that is Saturday between 5 and 7. And that's at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. It's on 4550 South Maryland Parkway, Suite 8, Las Vegas, Nevada. And I will be there. I'm taking my book, and I'm going to ask him to sign that. I'm going to record that. Now, I haven't spoke to Chuck O'Chilly, but I'm going to be asking him if I can get him to host the call for me next week and call in and play the recorded event, which I'll be recording. I will just be getting back home to Arkansas. I'm leaving Tuesday, traveling back. I've been gone since December. It's been quite a journey, but I'll tell you what, I'm tired. I'm wore out. Ready to go
home. Is Las Vegas home for you now?
Say again?
Is Las Vegas like home for you now since you've been there since December and all?
Well, Las Vegas has been my second home since 1969. I've been back and forth my whole life, so Yeah, I left and escaped the winter, and I'm going to go back in the worst month of the year in August for the stifling heat and humidity as penance for my sins.
Right.
Which brings us into religion, the dark side. Now, I would really like to get in because this goes in against some of my I don't like this word beliefs anymore, but some of my notions, some of my understandings of the what's of universe, and the creator and so forth. But you tie in a bunch of religions, the big religions, all in with all this similar 12s and so forth, and rebirths and whatnot, from Egypt and Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and so forth. Would you like to talk some about some of the, where you would see religion having come from?
Well, okay. Well, first of all, let me say, I guess the best way to talk about that would be to talk about where my religious background came from. I've been on a religious roller coaster probably for, I'd say about since I was 9 years old. Meaning that I come from a Christian household. Pretty much everybody from my immediate family are Christians. But I never really resonated with Christianity. I found it I'd sit in church with my mom and my dad, and it would be very boring. I really didn't believe anything the pastor was saying, and I was always wondering, why did we have to give money to the church? I was like, why did God need money? I mean, but that's another story. As a matter of fact, George Carlin explains that very well. So check out his video on religion, which is actually on my site, riseoftheindigo.wordpress.com. But I went on my own religious roller coaster. I tried Catholicism, paganism. Hell, I even went to Scientology, which I'm not really proud of. But I will say this. Scientology was probably the time where I realized that we weren't really humans, but actually the eternal being that resides inside the physical body. That's where Scientology kind of brought me to that stage. And there's a lot of interesting things in Scientology. There's a lot of jargon, but a lot of people say L. Ron Hubbard was a con man, and I guess that there's no denying that. But on top of that, there were some things, if you really kind of look beyond the whole, he's a scam artist and he just wants your money, you actually did get some material out of there that actually you could apply to your daily life. Like I said, it was the first time I realized that we were spirits, not the physical body. I don't know if anybody, any listeners has ever looked into Scientology, but I would suggest at least maybe reading one Scientology book just to get an idea of what it's all about, because you might actually find some things that you never thought would be you never thought would actually enter your brain, but you really get a good education out of some of the stuff there. So choose a book, Scientology book, and just give it a shot. Take what works for you, reject the rest. That's all you got to do. But as far as religion in general, I always thought of it as just a form of control, of social control, a form of telling you got to do it this way or you'll be punished. Christianity is the biggest example of this, but so is, if you think about it, so is Islam, because it's all about scaring you. It's all about fear. Do this or go to hell. Follow this or go to hell. Accept this person or go to hell. Another thing is it takes you away from your going in within yourself to looking outside of yourself. To, I need something outside of myself to save me from whatever calamity is coming. And I think that's, to me, that's the spiritual form of a Patriot Act. That's the way I've always looked at it ever since I started having these realizations. And with the Patriot Act, it was about, you just give us some of your freedom, or all of your freedom, however much freedom you want to give up, and we'll keep you safe. It's the same thing with religion. Give yourself to this Savior, and you'll go to heaven. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've never thought about that as like the words you put in. That's pretty good. Personally, I've I see religion and government and all that as, one goes hand in hand almost. That
Right.
the God is, in fact, the government, and corporatocracy, the beast and the machine. And
Mm-hmm.
I posted that, something I wrote here a little earlier, and dropped that in the chat there. Kind of continuing on that. The government's sole purpose is self-perpetuation, a system of destruction in which it claims its supposed legitimacy as role of protector for the very calamities it's created in the first place. Government is only accepted because people have been led to believe that that it's here to help us. What a joke, literally, right? I mean, everybody's heard that. I'm the government, I'm here to help you. In the meantime, it's business as usual. Kill, steal, and destroy, all the while leading others to champion their cause of tyranny that oozes the black heart that beats within. Can anyone honestly say that these heads of state are nothing more than thugs, parading as politicians, demanding tribute as protection, a thinly veiled extortion that, if rejected, will then be paid in blood? The mask is off and the curtain has been pulled back. Behold the behemoth. The elephant in the room can no longer be denied.
Mm. It's funny. The biggest mind screw, because it's all about, people judge, the term, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because someone is in a suit and tie doesn't mean that, he is the best person for you to look to. I mean, people worry about people in baggy clothes and baggy jeans and wearing a do-rag, and they think, oh my goodness, he's a thug, he's a criminal, he's a felon. But someone will look to someone in a suit and tie and say, oh, he's a businessman.
It's recent history. Well, not recent history, but back in the Inquisition, let's say, for instance, the church was just really right there about hey, you have to believe and do as we say, or we will kill you or hurt you. And we
Right.
see that it's in the government today. And there was a time when it was church and state together. Listening to last show, Suzanne Posel made some good points about some of this as well. But I think God has taken the role of government. Of God, the church, and it's not so thinly veiled anymore. More and more people are realizing it. That's some points that Larkin Rose had made too. I've spent a lot of time in these last couple of weeks and listening to a lot of his stuff on YouTube, and just that he and I were on actually together like a little more than a year ago here on UCY. Of course, he's been on with so many people he wouldn't probably doesn't remember. But anyways, I really like Larkin Rose. He doesn't pretend to have the answers, and nor do I. I have questions and would like to be able to present information and allow a person to question what it is that they think it is that they believe, and why do they believe it? Because that's what they were taught growing up, and you just don't question that. It's good enough for mom and dad. It's good enough for me. So.
Well, I think you made a very good point, Vince, because you said it right there. People don't question; they just accept because that's what they were told. I always ask somebody, say, when someone comes up with a conclusion, whether it be religion or about politics or government, I say, how did you come up with that? Was this something you came up with on your own, or was this something that was given to you? Most of the time, or sometimes I'll even leave that part out. I'll just ask them how they came up with the conclusion they did. Oh, it was told to me. Or I read it somewhere in the Bible, or if it has to do with politics, I saw it on CNN, or I read it in the New York Times. And right then and there, I'd be like, so it was an opinion that was given to you that you just accept without challenging it. So you basically came to take that newspaper or that book as the sole authority of, how to live. Like people say, I have a friend that, swears by the Bible. And he says he's open-minded. This is a funny quote. He says he's open-minded, but only to the King James Bible. So I came to him and I said, well, how could you say you're open-minded if you're just open-minded to one book? Would you look at the Quran, or would you look at the Torah, or would you look at the Bhagavad Gita? Like, would you look at anything else and not believe what it says, but actually try and find either things that connect with what you believe now, or even find things that disagree, so that way you have a broader scope and a bigger picture. And the resistance that I've gotten from him was just unbelievable. He's like, no, the only truth is in the King James Bible, and that's that. But I said, then you're not open-minded then. Open-minded means you'll look into all of it. If you're not going to look into all of it, do not call yourself open-minded.
That's more confirmation biased. And, a lot of people with the religion will, not look at anything that contradicts that. And, for instance, that not all Christians, believe that God torments the unrepentant in everlasting fire.
Right.
Not all Christians believe that the Zionist statement of, bless Israel, or be cursed type of deal that, that this, that they've had their time, it's come and gone. So, any number of different denominations are going to vary some. But anyways, just because a person claims a title does not necessarily mean they even know what that all that title entails, right? That most people don't even know what their religion is or what their holy book even says. All they go is they go on what they're told from the pulpit, and that's a scary thing. That means that you're allowing others to lead and influence you. So a self-examination, I think, is go about it scientifically. Go try to disprove yourself. I've been on this journey for quite some time, and of course I do have some questions, and I'm not going to tell anybody else what to believe. I think your free will to self-determination places that burden on you, just like the same as with government. If God in fact gives you free will and self-determination, then God then does take the role as religion as it has been before, and says you must believe like this, and if you don't obey, then you'll be persecuted.
Right, but then when it comes down to it, like I got to tell you something. You're right. You have every right to believe what you want, and I've come across some very nice Christians. I've come across very nice Muslims. But it seems like when you start to talk about, like, even if you point out facts or evidence of something that, like, one of the things is, I'll give you an example. I pointed out to one Christian about how in the Bible it seems to accept slavery as something that's okay, and they completely shut off. They just said, "Oh, I don't want to hear it." Another thing that you mentioned is about Israel. Now, Vince, you already know my stance on Israel, but I think I should also let people know this. Before I even took that anti-Israel stance, I actually was pro-Israel at one point. But the only reason why is because, again, keep in mind, I was raised in a Christian household, and this was still when I was going through my whole religious bouncing around of, okay, who has the right answer? But I always stood behind Israel because it was always told that America must stand behind Israel. It was told that Israel, that you have to support Israel. It's in the Bible, support Israel. America says support Israel, support it. So after a while, it's hammered into your head to the point where it's like, yeah, maybe we should support Israel. But that's when you have to say, think about it. If anything is ever being hammered into your head, whether it be from a politician, whether it be from any mainstream news source or anything mainstream, that's the time you have to question it. That's the time you have to say, well, why is it that they want to keep shoving down my throat, support Israel, or whatever it is that they want us to support, like support the sanctions on Russia that the U.S. is ridiculously handing out to Russia, which I think this Russia's just laughing at right now. It's like I don't know. As a matter of fact, what's your stance on that with these sanctions with the U.S. and Russia? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's all about control. So, Jax, there's the story about the farmland right there is what I was referring to. I don't have too much opinion on Russia and Ukraine and all that stuff. A lot of people have been covering that.
Right.
Brandon Tuberville here on UCY for one would probably be a good source. Let's see. I think Michael Cross covered that. Anyways, there's a lot of good coverage here on UCY. People that do the news, I really don't, because it's so subjective. The only thing you're seeing is what the media wants you to see, and that comes, of course, from the higher up. So, nobody can really figure out this stuff. I don't think, but we can look at history and we can look at patterns. We can kind of figure out in what direction things lay. We see this farm. See, back in the early 1900s, Israelis were, or Jews or whatever, were coming, and they were starting to live in the land of Palestine, and people accepted one another, and there were Christians there, and Muslims and Jews, and so tensions stir along the way. People use their politics to stir people up to kill one another. I don't support Gaza. I don't support Israel. I don't support any state. I don't support the killing of anybody. There's obviously wrongs on each side, and there goes the first part of the story where the law enforcement were bombing entire neighborhoods looking to kill one criminal. So what is the come on, really? Does that make any sense? It all turns the military-industrial complex. That's, people think that war is good. Destruction does not create anything. It's quite obvious. That comes from an ancient religion of, the phoenix rising from the ashes. So there is probably people of, occult mind that would believe that destruction, brings about a new life. But, man, I'm against it.
Well, that's where they got order out of chaos from, Vincent. I mean, that's the whole Freemasonry logo, order out of chaos. Through chaos comes order, which I disagree with. Order comes through order, not chaos. If you're going to have chaos, that's all you're going to get. You could lie to yourself all you want and say, through this chaos we'll have order. But only what's going to be order is if you work by order. Like, it's order through order, not order through chaos. I don't know I don't know how much simpler I can put it, but that's the best I can do.
I'm going to say this for anybody that doesn't like it. I'm sorry, but what I see is the powers in Nazi Germany were not defeated. They were incorporated into the United States, and then arose the nation of Israel through, going back through these same powers that perpetuate themselves throughout history, back through the British Empire, back through the papal system, back to the Roman Empire, to the Greeks, to the Romans, the Greeks, on back to the Babylonians, and so forth and so on from Egypt. I just don't think that any one of them's died, but there seems to be
they're under another
plan. Yeah, a plan or a line that self-perpetuates, and the power today is a two-headed beast of the United States and Israel that is wreaking havoc and destruction upon the world. Does that mean that I'm against my country? No, I think the ideas that were not set as some holy writ in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. They were a statement that these rights were already self-evident, that we have the right to life, liberty, and to, they say pursuit of happiness, so that would include quite a bit. But, basically it is not to have your property taken from you, So
exactly.
Life, liberty, and property. Now, where we're at today we're far beyond that we supposedly rebelled against the British Empire and in our revolution, and I think history is covered up and convoluted, and it's all to keep us in servitude.
Right, and just touching on that, I did an article on Rise of the Indigo about the elite having no power. I believe, and like I said, this is how I feel. Some said they agree with me, some say that I've lost my mind. But the way I feel is the elite really don't have any power, but they have to put on this dog and pony show as if that they have all the power and that we can do this to you if we choose. But the fact of the matter is that the elite are probably the most fearful, which is why you see all this legislation being pushed through. The National Defense Authorization Act, which was put through on New Year's Eve of 2011, where everybody was celebrating 2012 coming in and getting drunk and everything like that. I actually have to say I'm guilty as charged on that. I was, everybody has their times where they like to take a break from the truth job to spend some time celebrating a new beginning. But you have to realize that whenever they're pushing through something new to make the people's life harder, it's because they're afraid. They know time is running short. And the only way they're going to try and hold on to everything that they still have is by putting through this legislation and getting the people to work against each other to keep everybody down, so that it's divide and conquer, basically. You get the people fighting with each other, you come in, swoop down, and you take over the whole damn thing. And that's the problem. It's all about them living in fear, the fear of humanity evolving and rising above this control system that we've been subjected to for thousands of years, being subjected to this. And now that time is ending, and the elite are shaking in their boots right now.
That's what Mom says in chat right now. She thinks they're scared shitless, and they've been stepping up their game, talking about the elite. So, you know,
she's absolutely right. There's no doubt about it. This is all and once you realize it, once you get this realization, and I hope everybody who's listening is really taking in what I'm saying right now. Once you realize that, now anything they put out, you can almost laugh at. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I actually have to shout out, I don't know if she's listening, but if she is, I got to shout out Jeanette. She's one of my Facebook friends. But she says, and every once in a while on her status, that there will be no World War III, and I couldn't agree more. It's the fact of the matter is they want people to believe there's going to be a World War III. That's why all of this stuff is going on, from Gaza versus Israel to Russia versus the U.S., from the Ukraine situation. All of this is to get, condition people to prepare for World War III. But like I said, if you realize where it's all coming from and why it's happening, it's because they're scared, and they want us to be as scared or even more scared than they are, because that keeps us in the low fear vibration, and that keeps us under control. They feel it keeps us in line. They feel that we need to be as afraid as they are. They want us to have the same mind that they do, because they operate from that reptilian brain, which is one of the three parts of the brain. Of course, Mark Passio's talked about this, David Icke has talked about this, but that's what it is. Keep people in the reptilian brain. Keep them in fear, survival, in that lower nature, so that, it's easy to control. If you ascend to your higher nature where the elite can't get to, then they can't control you, and they know this. So they have to try to keep you where they can control you, rather than where they can't control you.
Yeah, I've read a lot about that, or not a lot, but enough about to know what you're talking about anyways in your book. And, I don't know if there's aliens out there, or if there's angels or demons, or, I can't, and you, me, or nobody else can know anything. My stance is to try to evolve to that higher state, and then at the same time to resist that here on the on the natural level. So if God exists, which I believe He does, I think it's time for Him probably to come back and set things straight for everybody. Personally, I believe that why things have happened in the world is because of sin and the fall of man, and that if God were to had destroyed evil and those that decided to go about their own way, which is basically violating other people, that God could have been then called unfair. So I think God's on trial right here, that we might decide whether God is in fact fair or not. So
right,
far be it from me to stand here and proclaim to be judging God, but perhaps I am a little bit.
Well, since we're going to the discussion about God, this will be the perfect segue to talk about the divine dreamer theory, because my whole thing about God right now is that as of right now, God is asleep. Remember when I'll give you an example. In the Bible, it said that God rested on the seventh day. Now, you're someone, I'm sure, that at least read Genesis more than once. So you realize, did they ever say if God woke up? Did they say, it just went from God to Lord God? Now, people say, I don't think there's a difference, but I think how this connects to the divine dreamer theory is that God fell asleep, didn't wake up, and got lost in the dream. So all of this we're experiencing, from this conversation we're having to any conversation going on on the planet is all the element of God's dream. And I think the way to wake God up is for everybody collectively to remember who they are. And this by everybody remembering who they are, because there are power in numbers. The more people remember who they are, the quicker the dream starts, the quicker God wakes up. I figure, basically this is the theory I came up with. If many people know who they are and stick to that in a collective sense, collectively we could actually wake up the God within all of us. Hence, God himself wakes up. That's basically the main tenet of the divine dreamer theory. It's all about waking God up because he's asleep now. And the more that we think of this dream as reality, and the only reality it is, the deeper into the dream we fall, and the deeper sleep God goes into. So we forget about who we are, we descend. When you talk about the fall of man, it's the fall of God falling deep, deep, deep into that sleep, to the point where now we're becoming so separate that we don't know what's real anymore. We lost contact with that reality because we fell so deep into the dream, believing that it's real. That now it's a dream that we're in prison. It's like a dream prison that we cannot wake up out of unless we know for sure that this is a dream, and that we start to realize that on a collective basis, and then we come out of it. That's what the divine dreamer theory is, to answer the question from a couple of weeks ago.
That's very interesting. Listen, I want to add a couple of people. Daniel, I'm going to add you, Daniel Lewis Crumpton, the author, and Jay Cynthia. So, in case I can add you. I know you're listening there. Daniel was on with Chuck O'Celli, and very, very interesting. So, in the meantime, Mikey, won't you give us a little background on the Indigo Children? And I'd like to go over and grab Jay Cynthia and let her come in and weigh in just a little bit. And also, Daniel, if you'd like to come in, I'd be pleased to have you.
Sure. Okay, so this is how Indigo Children work. The story goes that during World War II, there was a wave of children that incarnated on planet Earth. They were called the Indigo Children, and this is what started this started more in the 60s. This is where you got the whole free love era of peace, the hippie movement. But the problem was in the 60s, even though there was an impact, it wasn't enough of an impact because not enough Indigo Children incarnated on the planet. And then eventually, after the 60s, those Indigo Children conformed to the establishment, and they... Hello?
Hi, it's Cynthia.
Hey, Jay Cynthia, what's up? Mikey here.
Hey, stand by, Jay Cynthia, and come in right after Mikey's done, and I think Daniel wants to come in also. So take about...
You got it, baby.
Take 5 minutes or so, and just here in a second, and then we'll see where we round out to. Okay.
Oh, good. I can go knock off another liquor store in 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Mikey. Finish up where you're at.
Okay, so I'm going to make this quick. Okay, so fast forward to the 80s now. So now I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 1983. So I definitely fall into this Indigo category. But it was actually from 1981 to about 1995 where a huger wave of Indigo Children incarnated on this planet. So let me just make this clear. Chances are, if you were born from the years 1981 to 1995, you are an Indigo child. It's not something that's exclusive to me or certain people. If you were born between those years, most likely, actually I'll say you are an Indigo child. You just have to remember that that's what you are. And as an Indigo child, you came on this planet to basically cause a shift in consciousness on the planet. There's to basically break away from the old because you realize internally that something's not right about this. You go along with it because of the peer pressure. Like, I went to, going to school, conforming to their way of learning, their way of thinking, the establishment way of thinking. But then you always realize something was wrong. Like, this is not the life we're supposed to lead. So, Indigo Children, basically, long story short, to wrap this up, came into this planet to change the way we do things here on the planet, to live more in harmony with each other, to learn to love each other, to learn not to try to get over on each other, lie to each other. We come here to help each other, to raise the planet's vibration, so to speak. That's basically what Indigo Children is in a nutshell, without getting into all the details. Because I can really go on pretty much all day about this, but just to get the key points, that's what Indigo Children are. So just to rehash again, 1981 to 1995 are where a major wave of Indigo Children came in. If you were born between those years, you are an Indigo child.
Yeah, that's all pretty interesting. Of course, a lot of people are as many different beliefs as there are people, nearly. So, hey, stand by with me, Mikey. Jay Cynthia, we have you in, and I think yep. Daniel Lewis Compton may want to come in with some questions or comments. So, go ahead, Jay Cynthia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Hi again, Mikey.
Hi, nice talking to you again.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of God and God energy, I just want to say this real quick, and then I have a couple of the gifts for you guys, some techniques of Scientology that really work well.
Okay.
But speaking of the God energy, and I want to get her on the show, Vinny, this Saturday. We've had her on before, and I can't remember if you were hosting or JJ was hosting, the woman who teaches you how to bend spoons with your mind. I went to one of her workshops on Sunday, and I freaking did it, you guys.
you know what? I've done that before, too, and quite frankly, I'm going to be honest, I've done it a couple of times, but then there's some times I couldn't do it. Like, it was almost like you want to try and do it at will, but then sometimes it just doesn't happen, and then then sometimes it does happen when you don't mean for it to happen, but I'm trying to learn how to energy to do it more at will, but it has happened to me before, too. It's it's fun if you do it.
It's really interesting. It's really depending from day to day where your resistance is. And sometimes if you're trying too hard, that's resistance. And Diane, who taught the class, she said something. She told us a great story that there was a girl in the class a couple of years ago, and she was trying, and like, I only bent a spoon, and I had really heavy spoons. I only bent them in half. And Vinny, I'll repost her YouTube video because it's amazing. But you can actually get to the point where you can twist it, like not just bend it over, but curlicues, twisting it that way, right? I couldn't do that my first time, but so very much like the Matrix, like really twisting it and curving it and all those things. Well, anyway, so this girl was trying, and she couldn't do it, and she gave up, and she put it in her pocket, and she just said, F it, I can't do this. And she went to the bathroom, then she came out, and she was talking to some people, and she realized the spoon was still in her pocket, and she pulled it out, and there were the twisty curlicues on it.
Well,
shout out from your mom, Mikey. She says, very interesting discussion tonight.
Oh, yeah,
I think that's your mom. Yeah, that's your mom.
Yes.
Hi, Mom.
But no, it's funny that you mentioned the Matrix, Jay Cynthia, because you got to remember, and this is cliche, but it actually is true in some way. The kid said that there is no spoon. It's just self.
Only realize the truth. It is not the spoon that bends, but it's yourself.
It's you.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to remember. Because this goes back to the divine dreamer theory. Everything, it comes from God. So if everything comes from God, including you, so does that spoon. But then if there is no spoon and it's yourself, then that's because everything is one. So you have the ability to manipulate it. It's just realizing the truth and just internalizing that. That's what it's all about. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes even knowing that, sometimes it's a little difficult. But that's because some of your thoughts get in the way. Because I know what it's trying. I know what they told me, that there is no spoon, but I see a spoon in front of me. These are kind of excuses that you will get from people. So,
sure. It's a lot of. I kind of come from the physics of it because I don't believe in God the way I think you do and other people do. That was kind of shredded from me when I was dying of cancer. And so I come at it from a different angle, and in the end, we're all talking about the same thing, but I come from it more on a physics level, and Einstein had said, find a frequency, match it, and you can have it. This is not philosophy, this is physics. And so that's kind of where my head is, and I'm just like you, Mikey. I was raised in a very strict Catholic home, and already started, diverting by the time I was 9, and tried to find other things, because the thing that was bothering me when I was 9 years old and reading about a punishing God is that I started reading about serial killers and reading about their past. And I felt at 9 years old, I understand that, they themselves have been tortured. These terrible things had happened to them. And I thought, well, if I can understand and forgive that, because they were just reacting to what was done to them, how can this almighty God who knows everything not forgive them and put them in an eternity burning in hell? What about the children in Africa where they're not baptized? Because, Catholics are very big in baptismal. They're not baptized because they have no touch with Christianity, and so they're going straight to hell. And so I had a real problem with that. So I already at 9 started reaching out to Buddhism and other different, religious and whatnot. And then this is going to sound weird to you guys, but the honest truth is I was given a great gift. When I was 12 years old, my father died, and he was only 42 years old. He was very young, died from a botched surgery. And then it really placed my feet on a path of I want to, discover this God for my truth and nobody else's truth. And you don't have to agree with me whatsoever. But the freedom is discovering your own God. And I wavered and I aberrated from that. And then when I had terminal cancer, I say my experience through cancer had nothing to do with cancer. It had to do with really rediscovering my God and what that was for me.
This is all very personal for each and every individual. So,
yeah.
We're not knocking anybody else or trying to say we're right over anybody
else.
No.
I
just want to be clear about that. Hey, I'd like to welcome Daniel Crumpton to the call.
Hi, Daniel.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I really enjoy him. So we're going to let him weigh in now.
Hey, Vince. Hey, Cynthia. Hey, Mikey. I have been listening for the past 48 minutes, and this is one of the most fascinating discussions that I've heard, and with such clarity on the topic of it, because a lot of people, especially, in certain circles, want to shy away from concepts such as the Indigo Children and things of that nature. So I just wanted to say that it's been a fascinating thing. But what I wanted to ask Mikey was if he's familiar with anything regarding the prophecy of the return of the Horai, which would seem to correlate with the return of the Indigo Children.
I am going to be honest and say I haven't heard of the return of the Horai, but what do you know about that? Because that's something, put it this way, if there's something I don't know about, I'm definitely going to look into it. But when you said Horai, it didn't sound familiar. But what did you hear about that?
Well, and I study more of the esoteric and more of the occult, so I'm kind of on that angle. I do understand what the Indigo Children are, but there's an ancient prophecy, and I don't want to get too in depth with Freemasonry because that's one of my main fields of study. But Gnosticism essentially is what birthed Freemasonry before it was corrupted. And in ancient Gnosticism, there is a prophecy, and this is the prophecy that was written in the Mayan calendar, in the I Ching, in the Webbot code. It's in the Bible code. But was that on December the 21st, 2012, which most people misinterpret to be the end of the world or whatever, that a race of people called the Horai, or the children of the sun, would return. That's what the all-seeing eye on the top of the $1 bill is, the return of Apollo. And according to the prophecy, on that date, Ra would return, and through his eyes he would wake up the other children of Horai, the little eyes of Horus, which would bring about a worldwide enlightenment, which seems to be what the Indigo movement is really all about in just different words. But the thing with the prophecy is the Freemasons specifically have known about the return of the Horai for a very long time. Are you familiar with the archons, with archonic influence?
It's funny that you say that because the novel that I wrote is about that, the Arconicals, which I'm doing as a 3-book series. I released one just on July 7th, and I got 2 more coming out, one for 2015 and one for 2016. Yes, I am familiar with the Archons.
Well, then you would know. We could probably have a lot of discussions on Facebook then. That the Archons are. The Archons have been afraid of the return of the Indigo and the Horai, and this is what organized religion has really been structured to do, which is try to suppress a movement that is inevitable.
Right. So this, but then it's funny you mentioned that, Daniel, because Vince and I were talking just at the beginning of the program about the elite being so afraid because of people, by putting in all this legislation. It's almost ridiculous at the point of all this legislation being put through, where it's like, Come on, really? It's like you don't realize you don't think we realize what's going on now. So it's funny that you mentioned that fear the archons have, because it's connected to the elite, who I would have to say is very, as I said, mentioned in the book, is very connected to the archons, almost in bed in a way with these archons to enslave everybody else on the planet.
Right. Well, and this ties into what we were talking about, movie symbolism. George Lucas based the Star Wars movies off of Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey.
I heard that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where you get the Return of the Jedi, which is, he tells you it comes from the prophecy of the Return of the Horai. And I find it very ironic that after 2012, now we have the next trilogy coming out that takes place after the Return of the Jedi, where there's already a republic. So, in what my studies have shown, the founding fathers, who were Freemasons before the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati infected it, they were aware of this prophecy and left riddles in stone throughout this country. I believe as mile markers for the Horai or the indigo. We're using two different words for the same thing. I prefer Horai, but I understand it as the indigo.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do any of you guys believe in reincarnation?
I do. I know it for a fact, yeah.
Okay, so what strikes me as a woman, not that any of you want to hear the female perspective, but I know Vince does. What's interesting as a female is I watch men, and there's a power shift and a power struggle and a tug of war and a this and a that constantly going on, which is fine because you guys love it, and so go for it. But yet it really, none of this really matters that much if there's no such thing as death. So now we're going to have, because, yeah, this country is falling, all countries fall, Rome fell. You know, it's just the way, the order of man and consciousness and human consciousness and the collective consciousness. But if we keep going and coming back and going and coming back, like, what's there to worry about if there's no such thing as death?
Cynthia, I cannot believe you just said that in those words. That is the control system, the archons, and Mikey would know this very, very much in his studies. The archons feed off of our negative trauma and fear.
Yes. Right. There are energies that do that, yeah.
Yeah, it's the food that they eat, just like in the Matrix, you know, we're batteries. And once we understand that reincarnation is a fact, and there is, in fact, no such thing as death, then what is there left to be afraid of? You become a useless battery. You're out of the system.
You're out of the system. Yeah, there's vibrational islands. Everything's vibrational. You guys, I think you guys would so dig, I don't know, I've been a student of Abraham Hicks since 1999. I've sat before them many times, asked them questions. They opened my book. They wrote the opening for me for my book about my experience through cancer. And it's so interesting because I know you don't know this, Daniel, but I've been trained by the Essenes who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. Jesus Christ was an Essene. And I've been training with them for 18 years. And there are certain energies that feed off of other energies that we emanate. And I had a personal experience with this because I would wake up in the morning and just like, you know, I would hear these voices. You're a loser. You're good for nothing. You can't do anything right, Cynthia. You're just an idiot. And they would just like, I'd be sweating and shaking. And so I went to one of my Essene teachers and they said, that's just an energy. Be calm and starve it. When you start hearing those voices, what you start saying is, no, I am love, I am good, I am love, I am good. And as I did it, only for a few minutes, that energy went away because I was starving that fear energy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, it works. The technique works.
Well, I think it's best. The best way to put this, and again, I'm going to speak in terms that more people might resonate with. Bill Hicks said you had a choice, fear or love. So it's as simple as that. When you said, Cynthia, when you were talking about saying that you are love, you were basically projecting what you really are, who you truly are, which is love. So when you start acting like who you are, you absolutely do starve these archons, and they hate that. They hate the fact that people realize who they are and that they're better than what the archons condition and their minions, the archons and their minions condition them to believe what they are. This is why TV in a way is dangerous, because it programs a reality that it wants you to have. It wants you to believe in the images that you see, and it takes a strong mind to watch TV and realize that, while trying to realize the truth. Because I'm not going to sit there and say I never look at a TV or anything like that, but I try not to watch as much TV. In the place I'm living now, I have no TV. But like every once in a while, I'll go to a friend's house and they'll have a TV on, and I may sit and watch a little bit with them. But the whole time, I'm realizing that TV does program the reality that that the people controlling the media want you to have. So as long as you know that, then it should not have the biggest effect on you.
Well, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about one of my favorite comedians and one of my idols, Wanda Sykes, because about TV. You're talking to the wrong person. I was on TV a great deal, and Wanda Sykes got married to her wife, and she has this in her stand-up, and the new wife says, "We turn TV off. TV no good." She's French. She speaks broken English. And Wanda Sykes says in her stand-up, she's like, TV bought us this house. TV bought us that TV. I think TV good. So, yeah, as far as, most of my living came from TV. So as far as watching TV, it's really about awareness. Like when you're watching something that makes you feel good or you're enjoying, but just watch those ads, and it's just awareness. That's all.
Well, it's also how the viewer is going to interpret it based off of where they're at. The only show that I watch on TV is Hannibal. Okay, now a person who's in negative energy may watch that show and go out and do something really, really stupid. But I'll watch it for psychological purposes and to get into the psyche of somebody like that. But I think
it's great writing.
Oh yeah, terrific writing and acting. But
great acting, yeah. There's nothing wrong with appreciating that as long as you know what you're doing.
Well, if you talk to people in Wiccan circles, some people believe in black magic and white magic, but they really call it the left-hand path and the right-hand path. And I have a friend. Her name is Marion, and she runs a magic shop. And the way that she explained it to me one day, she says, and she has a very thick German accent, she says, "Darling, you have to look at the knife. If a person gets a knife and they use it to cut the butter, that is good. Or they could take it to stab somebody with it. That is bad. It is not knife's fault." So it's not knife's fault.
You actually did a good job with your voice.
Very good. Hey guys, we're coming up to the end of the first hour, and guest hosts are going to take over, Colby and Dave. I'd like to remind everybody to check out Rise of the Indigo on WordPress. I've dropped it in chat. The Archonicles, book 1 in PDF, and that's free from Mikey Indigo. Also, really appreciate you again, Daniel. On ZenInTheCar.com, find him there. Authored Then Came the Flood, and also J. Cynthia Brooks. You can find her on Facebook at Valaro. Tell me that now. I'm going to stumble.
It's okay. J. Cynthia Brooks Official on Facebook, or J. Cynthia Brooks House of Healing on Facebook. And come listen to us, because Vinny and I are doing my show, Cancer Kickers, on Saturdays, 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And you guys, if you guys can call in, that would be awesome, because you guys are a blast.
Okay, I've sent you and Jay Cynthia, you and Mikey are already friends. Daniel, I've sent a friend suggestion between you and Mikey. Now, I want to remind everybody that, I've not got this put down yet, but hopefully Chuck will host my call and let me my show next week, because I'll just be getting home. And the following week, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm going to be in transit here coming up for this next couple of weeks as I travel back to Arkansas and reestablish my home there. I've got my internet still on, but I'll have to turn my power on, move my trailer back from where I parked it for reasons of my own that I moved it. Anyways, also, tune in Saturday, J. Cynthia Brooks, and then I'm going to be, as soon as I'm done there, jamming out of here to see Larkin Rose. Thanks again, you guys. Daniel and I are going to be doing a program in the future once I get back home and everything. Yes, that is on UCY, Jacqueline. She's on Saturdays, Cancer Kickers, 2 p.m. on the West Coast. So, again, everybody, thanks again for tuning in and for joining in the discussion. I know a lot of times that we all appear to be all-knowing and self-absorbed in what it is we think we're doing. Yes, Mom, going back home. So, anyways, thanks again, everybody. And here's Colby and Dave.
Thank you, Vinny, for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Go ahead, Colby. You can go.
All right, and I'm in. Dave, you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Alrighty. So we're going to be discussing what is known as the Control, Regulate, and Taxation of Marijuana Industrial Hemp Act. There's, at the top of the page, there's a two all-interested parties. Secretary of State Kate Brown is responsible for the pre-election review of proposed initiative petitions for compliance with the procedural constitutional requirement established in the Oregon Constitutional for initiative petitions. There will be complete before approval the form of the cover and signature sheets for the proposal with circulation in the proposed. So they've already done all this. So they've already done this. Kate Brown signed it. It's been signed by the compliance specialist. So we're going to skip past that first little section.
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you, Colby. I'm sorry. Somebody's wanting to call in. I'm not adding any calls for some reason. Skype on my end kicks me off the network when I add anybody from the telephone. So unless you're friends of Colby and Dave here and are invited in by them, I'm sorry, I have to decline. Sorry. Back to you, Colby.
Yes, sir. Be enacted by the people of the state of Oregon. This act shall be known as the Control, Regulate, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act. Section 1. The people of the state of Oregon declare that the purpose of this act are to eliminate the problems caused by the prohibition and uncontrolled manufacture, delivery, and possession of marijuana within the state. B. To protect the safety, welfare, health, and peace of the people of this state by prioritizing the state's limited law enforcement resources in the most effective, consistent, and rational way. Sounds good so far. I don't know, it gets scary later. To permit personal license, controlled, regulated, and taxed by this state to legally manufacture and sell marijuana to persons 21 years of age and older, subject to the provisions of this act. D. To ensure the State Department of Agriculture issues industrial hemp licenses and agricultural hemp seed production permit in accordance with existing state law, and to establish a comprehensive regulatory framework concerning marijuana under existing state law. The people of the state of Oregon intend that the provision of this act, together with the other provision of existing state law, will A. Prevent the distribution of marijuana to persons under the age of 21. B. Prevent revenue from the sale of marijuana from going to criminal enterprise, gangs, and cartels. Prevent diversion of marijuana from this state to other states. Prevent marijuana activity that is legal under state law from being under or used as a cover to pretext the trafficking and other illegal drug or other illegal activity. Prevent violence and the use of firearms and the cultivation and distribution of marijuana. And that's one. That's that one right there. E. That one's a little bit, I don't know on that one. Prevent drugged driving and the exacerbation of other adverse public health consequences associated with the use of marijuana. Prevent the growing of marijuana on public lands and the attendant public safety and environmental dangers posed by marijuana produced on public lands, and prevent the possession and use of marijuana on federal property. Dave, your concerns with this section?
Yes, with they didn't really define federal property, so you're allowed to have a garden for food, but I wouldn't. If you had a mining claim, I wouldn't grow marijuana. It wouldn't be a good idea. You'd get arrested. But I can tell you that the feds do look at small amounts of marijuana under Oregon law, and so it's been decriminalized. So they generally don't arrest too many people for it. They usually just throw it out. But where I was getting at is the licensing for distribution and sales, and that's all commercialized there. That's all fine. The taxes, when you get to them, they're a little high.
You were just dealing with this section, sir.
All right, for this section here on federal lands, you can't grow. I wouldn't do it. You could get in a lot of trouble under this provision because they're recognizing federal law's jurisdiction not to grow on federally managed lands, and so that would be to get at the cartels. They'd still be able to prosecute them for that, or anybody that was doing such a thing, and this wouldn't change that. And back to you.
My only issues with this one is Dave said federal lands. That wasn't actually specified in there. They were talking about public lands. That would also mean state and county lands. What they're trying to do is what they've been trying to do for a while is eradicate grows on private land. They've used the U.S. Army in a martial law effort that no one ever speaks of, really, to do this already. But it is more cartel growing under large canopy trees and having to use helicopters to go eradicate it. So what they're trying to do is reverse that cycle to where we don't actually have to worry about it being under the radar. They want it above the radar to where they're selling it okay. The firearms thing isn't really discussed in here too well, so that one marker, prevent violence in the use of firearms and the cultivation and distribution, there's no real definition to what they're talking about with that, and that one, even through the whole bill, isn't really discussed, so it's kind of an iffy playground, I would say. So we'll go on to the next section. Section 2 pretty much has a lot of definitions. So Section 2(1), Section 3 to 70 of this Act are added to and made a part of the Oregon Revised Statutes. Section 71 is added to and made a part of ORS Chapter 317. Section 72 is added to and made a part of ORS Chapter 475. Section 73 is added and made a part of 811. Short title, Section 3 to 70 of this Act shall be known and may be cited as the Control, Regulation, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act. Section 4, Limitations. Section 3 to 70 of this Act may not be construed, 1, to amend or affect in any way any state or federal law pertaining to employment matters. Section 2, to amend or affect in any way any state or federal laws pertaining to landlord-tenant matters. Number 3, to prohibit a recipient of a federal grant or an applicant for a federal grant from prohibiting the manufacture, delivery, possession, or use of marijuana to the extent necessary to satisfy federal requirements for the grant. 4, to prohibit a party to a federal contract or a person applying to be a party to a federal contract from prohibiting the manufacture, delivery, possession, or use of marijuana to the extent necessary to comply with the terms and conditions of the contract or to satisfy federal requirements for the contract. 5, to require a person to violate a federal law. 6, to exempt a person from a federal law or obstruction to enforce of a federal law, or to amend or afflict in any way the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act. That's the end of our Section 3 and 4. The cool thing about this is this does not at all change anyone that's on medical. That is a positive. There's other places where it's got negatives, but that is a pretty positive one. In that one, in 3 and 4, I really didn't see too many issues. But it more or less is spelling out that this is an interstate commerce issue between these sections so far, and it will do a little bit more so on later. Dave?
Yes. I wanted to say is those provisions are to cover for guys that are contracted to do work for the Forest Service or the BLM from taking guys out there and setting up grows, so that if there's a grant or a contract paying for you to go in there and trim trees or trim the forest back, or you're contracted for a specific thing, because you're back in there, you find places where they're very remote, and so they don't want federal contracting and basically temporary employees putting grows out there because they know where to go. And they've got it all ready because they've sent it out where it can't be seen. And that covers that. And then what you didn't cover here is what the license is for commercial use. There's provisions in here for personal use that you could grow up to 400.
We're getting to that. We're reading through the whole bill, Dave. We'll get to it.
Okay. Well, then I'll let it go back to you, and we'll carry on.
Alrighty. Now they go through a bunch of definitions. So this is Section 5. As used in Section 3 to 70, this Act. Authority means Oregon Health Authority. Commission means the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Consumer means a person who purchases, acquires, owns, holds, or uses marijuana items other than for the purpose of resale. Department means the State Department of Agriculture. Financial consideration, in quotations, except as provided in paragraph B of the subsection, means that value that is given or received directly or indirectly through sales or trade fees, contributions, or donations. Consideration does not mean any of the following: A, homegrown marijuana made by another person. B, homegrown marijuana produced made by another person. 6, homegrown or homemade means grown or made by a person 21 years of age or older for non-commercial purpose. 7, household means a housing unit and a place in or around the occupant of the housing unit or producing, possessing, keeping, or storing homegrown marijuana or homemade marijuana products. Housing unit means a house, an apartment, a mobile home, a group of rooms, or a single room that is occupied as a separate living quarter in which the occupant live and eat separately from any other person in the building, in which have direct access to the outside of the building or through a common hall. Immature marijuana plant means a marijuana plant with no observable flowers or buds. License means any person holding a license issued under this act, or any person holding a license, a permit issued under any regulation that's a weird one. Promulgated under paragraph E, subsection 2 of section of this act. Licensed representative means any owner, direct officer, manager, employee, agent, or other representative of a license to the extent such person acts as such representative. I mean, this is a lot of just general. They go into marijuana flower means a flower of the plant, cannabis family. Marijuana flowers does not include any part of the plant other than the flower. Marijuana item means marijuana, marijuana product, or marijuana extract. Marijuana leaves means the leaves of the plant, cannabis family, marijuana leaf does not include any part of the plant other than the leaves. Marijuana processor means a person who processes marijuana into the state. Marijuana producer means a person who produces marijuana in the state. Marijuana product means product that contains marijuana or marijuana extract. This goes on forever. Marijuana product does not mean marijuana by itself or a marijuana extract by itself. Marijuana retailer means a person who sells marijuana items to the consumer in the state. Marijuana wholesaler means a person who purchases marijuana items in the state for resale to a person other than a consumer in the state. Mature marijuana plant means any plant that is not a mature marijuana. It just keeps going on and on with definitions. Some of them are decent. I'm going to kind of skim through. Non-commercial means no dependent or conditional upon the provision of receipt of financial consideration. There's a lot of legalese in here. Person means any natural person, corporation, professional corporation, non-profit corporation, corporative corporation, profit or non-profit, non-corporation associated with business, trust, limited liability company, general limited. There's a lot of this. We want to extracts. We're going to skip forward to that. Most of this was definitions. Dave, you concur?
Excuse me, I had it muted. I would call this boilerplate. They're just covering their butts to conform them to other laws, and they're just wording the language through the definitions so that when you read the law in the inserts, you have the definitions right there handy so that you can decode the statute. People can go through and read the definitions. They're pretty self-explanatory. And then if you have any problem, you can look under Black's Law, or you can look up under Webster's Dictionary for the common meaning of the word. If it's sometimes they're not in the Webster's, but you can get a Black's Law and look it up in that. But basically, that's all boilerplate. That's all standard. It's just language that conforms this law to the other laws, so they try not to conflict with each other, so that certain things are exempt. If you're licensed, you can have more product. If you're a producer, you can produce more product. If you're just a guy wanting to grow 4 plants for yourself, and you're going to grow small quantities, and
well, they were at Section 6, which is exemptions.
Yeah, Section 6 would be the exemptions to what this law exempts everybody from. And the biggest one...
So let's go through those slowly.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Section 6 exemptions. Section 7 to 44 and 60 to 2 of this Act do not apply to the production, processing, keeping, or storage of homegrown marijuana at a household by one or more persons 21 years of age or older. If the total of homegrown marijuana at the household does not exceed 4 marijuana plants and 8 ounces of usable marijuana given time. B, to making, processing, keeping, or storage of home products by more persons 21 years older. Homegrown marijuana products at the household does not exceed 16 ounce form. To the making, processing, keeping, or storage of homemade marijuana products at a household by one or more persons 21 years or older. In the total of homegrown marijuana products at the household does not exceed 72 ounces in liquid form at a time. Delivery of no more than 1 ounce of homegrown marijuana at a given time by a person 21 years of age or older to another person 21 years of age or older for non-commercial purposes. Delivery of more than 16 ounces of homegrown marijuana product in a solid form to the same extent for non-commercial purposes. Delivery of not more than 72 ounces of homegrown marijuana product in liquid form to a person 21 years or older for non-commercial purposes. Section 7 to 70 of this Act do not apply to the extent a person acts within the scope of and in compliance with the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act, or do not amend or affect in any way the function, duty, and power of the Oregon Health Authority under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act. Pretty much what that says is you can have 4 plants, 8 ounces of flour, 16 ounces of solid, which would be like butter, or, so that's a pound, homemade food, or oils or things of that such, and then 72 ounces of liquid form. Now, liquid form in 72 ounces. I mean, wow. With the invention of honey oil and some of the other oils, that's a lot. You can transfer all 3 of those amounts up to 1 ounce for actual flour to a person at one given time. All 3 at one given time. And nothing happens. It's complete, hey, I've got too much, I don't want the fuzz coming around, busting me out for it. So, for the home growers, people that understand that, hey, I could light up a closet during the winter and have my plants ready in the first start of the year and reduce the lights and keep them going all year round. And still have 4 plants, 8 ounces at the house, and, give to my friends because it's a cool hobby I like doing. But the problem with that is we all know that most people that do that aren't going to do it for free. Some will, some won't. It's dependent. But for the most part, it eliminated the Medical Marijuana Act completely from this. If you're on medical, you've still got your limits. And there's not really anything in here that I saw so far, so I'm going to speak about it, that says you can't be the person on medical in the house, and there's another person that's not on medical in the house that wants 4 plants for non-medical reasons. So I think you could double it up because of that one, and that's kind of a in-between on the law, in my opinion. That's like up to the judge's discretion, probably, because there's really nothing spelled out about it. But Dave, what's your opinion on the rest of this part?
My opinion is on this part is it allows a guy to grow 4 plants. If he was going to grow 4 plants in a year, they've underestimated how much you can produce. But it would allow you to give your excess away. You can't get in trouble for that, especially if you donated it to the medical. But if you, like you said, if you had 4 medicals and one person there is recreational, he could have 4 plants, and there could actually be 28 plants or something, because what they allow under the medical marijuana growers versus the guy that can now grow recreational as well. And if he's licensed in one, there's no exemption from him. In fact, it says he can hold more than 1 license. So a guy that holds a medical marijuana license could get a wholesale license and probably a retail license. You have to apply for them when it's time to apply for them, when they get it all written out on the regulations. Overall, this is not perfect by far because the taxes are too high on it for what the actual cost will come down to. That can be revisited through the state legislature, or we can write another petition correcting that language on taxation. But the main thing that I would like to say about this, so we don't forget it, is this nullifies federal law inside the boundaries of the state of Oregon. And that is the one good thing from this, where the other ones didn't attempt to do that. This does. The state, the feds, when you get enough states, I believe it's 32 states, say this federal law is wrong, they can nullify it. And then since because it's going to be created as commerce, the Commerce Clause will kick in, and they won't be able to prevent interstate trafficking of illegal product. And eventually this will lead to a broader market, and it'll lead to a lot of different things to come out of this. A whole industry could be born, just like the wine industry when Gallo grew so large because they can make cheap wine. But look at all the small boutiques that are around it that found their niche, that have their market. They may not be large, they're making a good living doing wine. I could see the same thing in this as far as growing marijuana and it developing a market, a larger one, very large one in time. But nothing will happen until you nullify federal law, and it takes 32 states. Oregon would just be one among many. I would advise, this is not perfect, but it's a...
You about ready to get to Section 7, Dave?
Yeah, okay, you want to get to Section 7. Let's go through that.
So Section 7, and if anyone's in the chat room right now and they have a link to this, they should. I know Vincent's got it, and I know that Dave's got it. They can post it up in the chat room so other people can read it too. Pretty much, this is where the power struggle begins, because this law is not perfect. It's pretty typical of what I would have expected, honestly, because so many people are inept to the fact that giving government control of alcohol or tobacco or anything leads to more taxation. It leads to more theft of wealth. I know a person that actually saves all their receipts throughout the year for when they buy beer, they buy alcohol, they buy tobacco, they buy gas, they buy anything. And when it throws a tax up there, he writes all these in under miscellaneous taxes at the end of the year, which is really, really tedious. So this is if you're not from Oregon, pretty much what they're doing is they've taken the Oregon Liquor Control and they've turned it into the Department of Alcohol and Marijuana. So it's kind of odd. I'm waiting for the tobacco and firearms to get thrown on it, but it hasn't happened yet. it pretty much just transposed every liquor law we had. So in our state, you have to go through a class and you have to recertify and pay a taxation, I would call it, in order to be a bartender or someone that works at a liquor store. To sell beer at a convenience store, you don't have to do any of those things, but there's still a tax on all that as well. They're doing the same exact thing with marijuana they did with that. They're creating a substructure of a job market per se, and then they're just dipping their hands in. I mean, they do not, in this, they do state that you cannot, on a city or county level, tax it. And humorously enough, at the Republican meeting I went to, not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before last, we had a county commissioner up there screaming about, oh, well, we're not going to be able to tax it local, so we can't vote for this. It's that green devil. And I'm not saying to or not to vote for this. I think it actually, I don't even know if I want to vote for this. I think because it's an interstate commerce thing, I think it's good. But at the same time, it's not as free as I would expect that I would want it to be. Other people that are more reflected on the system are going to say, hey, I'm going to do that and eat it up. But Section 7 pretty much just says that they imposed the alcohol laws into marijuana. So no one under 21, if you do this, you do that, you get this punishment, your license is revoked. You can't get your license if you have done this, and blah, blah, blah. It's exactly verbatim what they have for alcohol. It's just transposed on marijuana. The next section goes 8, and that goes into powers and duties of State Department of Agriculture. The State Department of Agriculture shall assist and cooperate with the Oregon Liquor Control Commission and the Oregon Health Authority to the extent necessary for the Commission and the authority to carry out the duties of the Commission and the authority under Section 3 to 70 of this Act. So what they're doing is they're pretty much throwing the Department of Agriculture in like they do with everything. Section 9, the power and duties of the Oregon Health Authority. The Oregon Health Authority shall assist cooperation with the liquor control and agriculture. Same thing. And then it goes to Section 10, no liability for official acts. Remember, the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the State Agriculture or Health and Human Services Authority may be sued for doing or omitting to do any act in the performance of duty as prescribed. So what they're doing is this CYA for all three of those agencies on that one. Section 11 is powers. Licenses, federal law. Neither the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the State Department of Agriculture, nor the Oregon Health Authority may refuse to perform any duty under the Section 3 to 70 of the Act basis the manufacture, distribution, possession, or use of marijuana and prohibition by federal law. 2. The Commission may not revoke or refuse to issue or renew a license under Sections 3 to 70 of this Act on the basis that manufacturing, distribution, dispensaries, possession, or use of marijuana is prohibited by federal law. No contract shall be unenforceable on the basis that manufacturing is prohibited under federal law. So what they're doing right now is they're creating interstate commerce, and the next one is licensing and license representatives. They can't be stopped by federal law for doing such, and that's all they're stating in most of this. Section 14, purposes and qualifications. No license or license prescribed may sell or deliver any marijuana items to any person of the age of 21. Section 15, limitations on purchase may be imposed. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission may limit the quantity of marijuana items purchased at any one time by a consumer so as effectually to prevent the resale of marijuana items. So what that says, which I really don't agree with, if they believe that you're buying it and taking it across state lines, they're going to stop you. They're going to fine you, they're going to jail you, and they're going to say this person is not allowed to. So it's pretty much probation. Required identification for certain purchases. All licensees and licensee representatives before selling or serving marijuana items to any person about whom there is a reasonable doubt of the person's having reached 21 years of age shall require such person to produce of the following pieces of identification: the person's passport, ID, driver's license, identification card issued under ORS, United States Military Identification Card, any other identification card issued by a state that bears a picture of the person, the name of the person's date of birth, physical description, blah, 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 false statement of age as defense. No person shall produce any piece of identification that would falsely identify the person's age. So they just keep transposing all of it. It's all transposed. Dave, your interjection on that right there, if you have any, they pretty much, it all just spells completely out what they're doing.
Yes, we call that boilerplate, where they take another law and they transpose it to cover a new substance or whatever. If you go back and you look when they first got rid of prohibition alcohol in the state of Oregon, they set the taxes too high. They had to readjust because the black market ended and the exorbitant prices evaporated. And that's what will happen here. And since they always write in provisions for a guy to grow a certain amount, the guy that can grow enough for him to get him through a period of time and then regrow enough to get him through a period of time won't be buying it because it'll still be cheaper to grow it than to buy it from a legal retailer. There'll be some people that won't be able to grow it and they'll buy it, but they won't be buying it very much and their volumes will be low until they lower the price, and where you have the what they call the price breaking point of, is it cheaper for me to grow it or is it cheaper for me to buy it? And when that conversion meets, people will buy it and the volumes will go up and they'll make more money. That's with any business, because this has been an illegal product for as long as I can ever remember. In Oregon, it's been decriminalized for a long time for under an ounce. And most police officers don't write tickets for it unless they're forced to. Yeah, well, they may have upped the ante on how much you can have on you before they do anything. But they pretty much don't want to write the ticket because they don't make any money on it. They can actually make more money catching a drunk driver because of all the hoops they can make you run through in the court system. Just having marijuana and writing you an open container ticket, because to prove somebody's intoxicated on marijuana is not so easy, because it's been proven reflux times don't change for people that are not drinkers that smoke marijuana, where your reflux time is affected by alcohol. And they haven't done the complete studies on them, but if you told me you were a drinker and you wanted to drive my car, I'd tell you no. If it was an emergency, I'd still tell you no. I would drive you. But I don't have insurance to let anybody else drive, but if I did, because I'm only the insured to drive my car, but if it was an emergency and I couldn't drive, and I knew the guy that was going to drive, and just because I know he smoked a joint 2 hours ago, I wouldn't be worried at all of him driving my car, as long as I knew him to be a safe driver. I would never say that about somebody that drinks alcohol, because they could be the safest driver in the world, but they're the ones that kill everybody. And so that's the difference between somebody that might smoke a little pot to take the edge off versus somebody that drinks one down and doesn't know when to stop drinking them down. I've never heard anybody overdosing on marijuana, and I have on alcohol. I've seen alcohol poisoning. It's not very nice. And I've never seen that happen to anybody on marijuana. For the outlook on me, this is not perfect, but it's a start. You know, we can amend this when we see difficulties, and we can lobby the state legislature to show them what could happen if they amend the tax on it and lower it on it. It's just a little bit, it's priced for the black market. It should be priced for a legal market when it becomes legal, and the prices all evaporate. And
I jumped through the reading a little bit. I'm about to get to the section that you really want to talk about, the taxation.
Right.
So,
well, the taxation part is the worst part about this, is because it's what the price of retail will be set at is because of what they're charging for the tax, plus you got to pay for the marijuana.
Roger, I'm going to jump down to that right now, actually.
Okay, I'm going to let you cover that. And you're back to you.
Everything in there was honestly, above that was just pretty much you lose your license, which is pretty much self-explanatory if you understand Oregon state liquor control laws. It's the same, like Dave was saying, it's complete boilerplate. They just took the alcohol law and they threw it into marijuana. So you've got the same exact, honestly, they're kind of a screwed up liquor control board anyway. And we've tried to get them removed a couple times, but now they're expanding it. So that is a horrible part of this law. Giving them control of anything is never a good thing. They will shut down bars that have 9 bars because they have the highest DUIs. Well, when you've got bars that are 9 in one building, and one's a techno bar, one's a jazz bar, and one's a Scotch bar, and one's a country bar, and one's a hip-hop bar, and everybody can be facilitated within this same place, it doesn't work very well in the area, because the simple fact is, you've got all those people in the same place. Everyone can be accommodated there, and they had the highest DUI rate. So the OLCC shut them down. Very popular bar, very popular business. Shenanigans used to be downtown. But of course they had the highest DUI rate. If you took the 9 other bars and compared them to their DUI rate, it would probably still have a little bit of a higher DUI rate out of their bar. But is that even logical anyway? In my opinion, no victim, no crime. But at the same time, control yourself. It's all about self-liberty. You've got to make sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. And people do. So what we're going to get into now is Section 31. And I kind of explained how everything works above that, because it's how they take your liquor license and shut you down, in a sense. If you're not familiar with the case, look into Shenanigans being shut down in Medford, Oregon. That's a really quick way to get updated on how OLCC works and what they function over. Now we're going to the taxation portion. We're at Section 31. Administration by Oregon Liquor Control Commission. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission shall administer Section 31 to 44 of this Act and shall prescribe forms and make such rules and regulations as it deems necessary, remember that word, as it deems necessary to enforce Section 31 to 44 of this Act. Section 32, definition of sale. As used in Section 31 to 44 of this Act, sale or sold means any transfer, exchange, or barter in any manner or by any means for a consideration. Remember all these words, and includes and means all sales made by any person. It includes a gift by a person engaged in the business of selling marijuana for advertising as a means of evading Section 31 and 44 of this Act, or for any other purpose. If a marijuana producer also holds one or more processor licenses, one or more wholesale licenses, or one or more retail licenses, a sale of marijuana flower, marijuana leaf, or immature marijuana plant will be deemed to occur if and when the marijuana producer processes or takes any other action with respect to such marijuana flower, leaf, immature plant, for which a processor license, wholesale license, or retail license is required, regardless of whether the marijuana producer continues to own or possess the marijuana flower, leaf, or plant. And I'm skipping some words for those of you that are reading along. Section 33, tax on marijuana. A tax is imposed upon the privilege of engaging in business as a marijuana producer at the rate of 35 per ounce on all marijuana flowers, 10 per ounce on all marijuana leaves, and 5 per immature marijuana plant. The rate of taxation imposed by this section upon marijuana flowers, leaf, applied proportionally to quantities of less than 1 ounce. The tax imposed by this section shall be measured by the quantity of marijuana flower, leaf, and immature plant produced and sold by any producer The taxes specified in this section shall be levied and assessed to the marijuana producer at the time the first sale of the marijuana flower plant leaf by the marijuana producer. For reporting periods beginning on or after July 1st, 2017, the rates of the tax under subsection 1 of the section shall be adjusted for each biennium according to the cost of living adjustment for the calendar year. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission shall recompute the rates for each biennium by adding to each rate in subsection 1 of this section the production obtained by multiplying the rate by a factor that is equal to 0.25 multiplied by the percentage, if any, by which the month average U.S. city average consumer price index for the 12 consecutive months ending in August of the prior calendar year exceed the month average U.S. city average consumer price index for the 12 consecutive month ending in August 31st, 2015. That's a mouthful. The Commission shall regulatory review the rate of tax under subsection 1 of this section and make recommendations to the Legislative Assembly regarding appropriate adjustment to the rates that will further the purpose of maximizing net revenue, minimizing the illegal marijuana industry under Oregon law, and discouraging the use of marijuana by minors under 21 years of age. That's a mouthful. And Vincent can jump in here also whenever he'd like to. What I'd pretty much read there is that they're going to go off what the current market value is of everything and how the economy is going. Well, we already know the economy's in the crapper, but we also know that's really not changing. But we also know the numbers are fixed. So that's three negatives, honestly. We already know it's fixed. The housing market fluctuates whenever they want it to. They fix the numbers so that they get more revenue. So, in essence, this section for taxation really destroys this whole bill. The only upside is you get a little bit of growth, but you can't barter it. So, say Dave's engine blows in his vehicle, and he has no money, but he's got all this excess marijuana that he just harvested off his plants, and he wants to get his engine fixed. Dave is going to be taxed for trading a mechanic marijuana, and he has to keep a receipt of the price evaluation, which, I mean, there's people that'll fix those kind of books and make it look like he didn't pay anything. But at the same time, if you get audited, it's the same game you're always going to play when you're a business that's smaller or larger. So it's really not. You have no free market. That's my problem with it. There is no free market. So say, hey, I finally figured out how to get Drew over here and have him help me out with this pond that I keep seeming to kill fish in because I'm a moron on a pond sense. And I say, hey, Drew, do you want some of this marijuana in compensation? Can we barter in that? I'm not saying Drew does or doesn't do marijuana. This is a hypothetical. At that point, I have to write down, and he has to write down, and we have to go into the whole tax system of being a freelance, and it's just absurd in that sense. You can't barter with it. You can't barter something that you grew at home naturally that you're going to have. Honestly, like Dave said, he's not wrong. If I grew 4 plants here in this little green triangle we're in, I would have way more than I could do with. They did give me the exception of saying, hey, turn your really high quality flour into some oil because you can get 72 ounces of holy crap, I took that on an eyedropper like it was LSD and now I can't breathe. You're not going to not breathe, but you're going to be asleep. So it's really, this is the part, besides the OLCC part, that is what is going on here? Why can't we ever get something free market? And my opinion in this point is, and this is honestly where the bill stops, and you're like, what's the worth of it? It goes into hemp seed later and hemp seed production on an agricultural basis and how the Oregon Department of Agriculture is going to control everything. And that's pretty much where you're left at after this. That's the only other things it goes into is the commercial values, how you can get licenses revoked for agricultural reasons, and the substance dies at Oregon Liquor Control. The substance just dies, and then it keeps diving because there's no free market in this bill whatsoever. And Dave, that's yours.
I agree there's no free market, but we live in a society with no free markets. This law is not perfect. I don't like these provisions in here, and they're the worst of the worst. But it does give the discretion when they're writing the regulations to adjust the tax. And I would say all the producers and all the retailers and everybody would, at that point, would need to get together and lobby the state legislature to actually rein that in and rein the taxes back to what the economy really is here. And they should rein in all taxes, not just on this. They should be reining in taxes. They shouldn't be trying to raise revenue off of people here that have no revenue to be raised from. I don't know that bringing in the marijuana industry into this valley, it's already here. People are making money from it. They'll continue to make money if this law doesn't pass. They just be able to get to justify it, especially a medical marijuana guy that could go out and get a wholesale license. That gives him a place for his excess to go to and still meet his needs of his patients. It's a way to subsidize.
Well, you live in White City.
I live in Eagle Point.
Well, you're right on the street from me.
I'm within a mile of you.
If you drive down Old Mill Roads out back of White City, behind Biomass, I mean, how many of those mills are for sale that are just honestly giant warehouses with maybe some equipment or maybe not that you could either scrap or sell off to other mills and use them for actual cultivation? It could create job growth because it does include hemp seed in the agriculture portion, and it does include hemp in the agriculture portion. It also does say in there that no, on a plus side, the city and the state can't add a tax like they do with all this other crap. Which that's a positive, but at the same time, the way that it was just worded, because we're not going to have time. We've only got about 11 minutes left, and I'm going to have to jump off soon to join in with Chuck and Drew. But I mean, it really does. It could create jobs, but it's just not written properly.
It
doesn't give enough freedom. It really doesn't.
It's not written properly because the guy that wrote it probably had another agenda in mind. And a lot of these guys that donate money to these causes have other agendas, and so they may have been involved in the language, or they may have just found somebody that wrote this and they just funded it. Who knows? But what they were looking at was getting a wedge in where you can do it from here, because you got a regulatory body. Then you just send in your lobbyist to tailor the regulations, and you straighten out the tax. You get it lowered so that it's so much of the tax isn't passed on to the consumer, but where you can have the higher volumes, and then you can open it up. And since there's it says they have to license you as long as you meet the criteria. Anybody can go in and get a license. I don't see any restrictions on, too many restrictions on acquiring a license unless you already had convictions. So,
Dave, I've been stealing the show tonight. I'm sorry, but I got 5 minutes until
all right.
Pop off.
I'd like to do an update on my case. This is a perfect time for me to do that.
Well, I'll let you have the last 5 minutes. Let me jump on here real quick.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think this is a bill that they wrote in a lot of boilerplate, like Dave was the one that brought up the word, and I understand what it means. And it's a lot of boilerplate. I already knew that. In a sense, it's a good bill. In a sense, it's not. The freedom to barter. I mean, who's to say that I make bullets? I'm a gun guy. That's what I do. I make really nice bullets. Who's to say that if Dave and I barter for bullets, if either of us did use marijuana, it's not acceptable and to be taxed on it? Well, for one, I can't sell my bullets because that's technically technically illegal. So bartering is one thing that is an option. You know, there's people that I know that actually go and they build bullets and they trade for things like welding and fabricational work or paint. You know, I've loaned out things like a rototiller to someone when I got a free paint job on a gun. There's lots of us around here that barter in other things like vegetables or knowledge. I mean, the knowledge from someone like Drew with his show. I mean, the knowledge from other people that have really good skills. We've all got a lot of good skill sets. So it's the difference is I mean, you're bartering knowledge. So let's say, why can't you? Why can you not trade something that you're going to be overabundant in anyway? And the state already knows you're going to be overabundant in oil, flour, and well, you can keep on the oil and the solid, but the flour you're going to be overabundant in. They already know that, and leaf too. So I mean, it goes into compost, and you can just shut up. It doesn't make any sense on that aspect. That's a one spot where, also with the taxation. I mean, the problem is if people are smart enough in most of these areas here, they know that they're going to learn from someone else how to grow this right and be okay, and they're not going to have to pay for it. But they're always going to be overly abundant in it. Every time you harvest 4 plants in this area through the summer, you're going to be overabundant. Now, if you harvest plants indoor or through the winter, you won't really. You could probably be just fine. But say you don't have plants and you want to learn from me, and I want to learn from you, and I want to come over and watch somebody do aquaponics, or someone wants to come over and watch me do mechanic work, and we want to trade in skills so that we learn from one another. Or I want to watch someone grow and how they do their water processes and their testing of their soil and things like that. There's a lot of places where that's a barter. You learn a skill from someone, and you don't even have the freedom to do that in here. It's completely ridiculous in that. That one aspect really blows it out of the water. I mean, I understand that people are probably going to vote this in, because the first part of this is it gives them the freedom to grow on their own. And this area will do it, because they always can. Whether it's in their closet or it's in the summertime, they can grow here. And they know they can grow here. And they know people that know how to grow. Bartering a skill from that person is still going to be illegal. But I'm getting my call, and it is right on you, and you've got some updates to do on your case, and I've heard about them, and lots of good things going on, so I'll let you guys go.
Okay, see you later, Colby.
See you later or next week, sir.
All right.
Bye, Vince.
Hey, before you go, Colby, I'm gonna have to get somebody to host the call next week. I want to call in with a recording.
Roger, I'll add you in a minute.
Yeah, and hey, go ahead and finish up, and let me have the last couple of minutes. And anyways, I'm probably going to be out of here for a couple of weeks as I head back to the house and get my life back and everything moved back around there in Arkansas. So
you have a good trip there, Vincent.
Right on, bro. Go ahead and I'll tell you what, I'll give us some credits out here, and then I'll let you finish this out, Dave, till the end of the hour. I'd like to thank Phyllis Sinclair for Still My Mantra at Last. I would like to ask everybody to go check out that music. It's such a beautiful song. Jaja's going to rock us out with Radioactive. Find her, Jaja, on Facebook, everywhere on Reverb Nation and YouTube. Really, hey, she is Radioactive. And thanks everybody for listening. Thanks UCY.TV Jules for allowing us a platform. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. And for those of you that cut out earlier, of course, you're not hearing this. Hey, sorry some of the subjects, tick you off. But, hey, we're talking about and sharing information and ideas. We're going to continue the first hour topic with J. Cynthia Brooks on her show, Cancer Kickers. And so I hope you'll join in Saturday at 2 o'clock on the left coast, and back that up about 3 hours if you're over on the east coast. So, hey, love and peace, y'all. Dave, take it out.
All right. My update is I answered a show cause order ordered by the judge from the U.S. Court of Appeals from the Federal Circuit, Washington, D.C. And so I answered that. So last Friday, the 25th, I got a call from where my mail is. I got a thing from Peter Katzwicki. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm doing the best I can. He sent me an answer Well, it was very disingenuous, and that's a way of saying, a polite way of saying, none of it's very honest stuff. But so I mailed off on Monday a response doing an amended complaint at his suggestion due to the fact they gave me 30 days to do that. They received it yesterday. My notice of complaint weighed 8 pounds. Over 800 and some pages, 824 to be exact. And it weighed 8 pounds. I wrote 2 pages. I put into the record exhibits written by law reviews of all sorts on property law, on trust law, on the mineral estate, the valuable mineral deposit estate, the disposal and occupation of the mineral estate. I provided them. That was 578 pages alone. And so these notice brief exhibits cannot be ignored. And so this is where we're headed to. We're headed for a collision of concepts of what property law is and whether I'm going to get the Inspector General appointed by the court. I found out some things through some certain web places that I've got links to that the Inspector General is now conducting an audit of accountability. Whether they're going to do anything with it will depend on the court. But they've started their audit. The U.S. Office of Accountability, the U.S. Government's Office of Accountability, an arm of Congress, they are too starting an audit of accountability. So as we move forward in my case and I educate these people on what their duties of trust are, their public trust as duties of trust, to follow their duties. This Mr. Peter Kruzwicki, or however you pronounce his last name, told me he worked for the United States government and he worked for the Environmental Department of Justice in the Department of Justice wing. And I said to him, I said, no, sir. Have a good evening.
Love and peace, y'all. Stick around for Double Crossed Radio. Next, we're going to talk about Roundup and the ingredients. Take care, y'all.
Democrats, Republicans, your information's jumbling. The USA is crumbling. Y'all sit back, dumb as shit. The mass invasion, the home invasions. The CPS is coming to snatch your babies. These confiscations, the conversations. They're operating within the zones we trade in. We're in the matrix, now we're totally raided. They infiltrated, finally the devil gave in. If you can't hear me, then pump up the volume. Make Donald, Bin Laden, Osama, Obama, bring up something real. Legalize marijuana. Everything on a bong hit is as blonde as Madonna. Radioactive, intergalactic, counterattacking.